So, welcome to Simplifying with Functions. In this video, we are going to talk about the fact that programming is all about managing complexity. We want to think about as few things at a time as possible. We'll talk about the idea of abstraction and encapsulation. We'll discuss how functions help us simplify things. You'll write and call your own functions. We'll have a warning about the side effects of functions, as they're called, and why we always use return at the end of your functions. I'm going to let you make a mistake in the first challenge. Although, now I've told you, I've given the game away and you may not make the mistake. Okay, let's dive in and take a look at this. So looking at my code right now, I'm not entirely happy because I'm starting to what I call lose the wood for the trees. There's just too much stuff on the screen to look at. So we want to start managing this complexity. So a word on that firstly. Abstraction and encapsulation, big words, and you'll see them on smart answers on Stack Overflow. So let me just give you my take on this. Firstly, I'd say that a major goal in writing software is to manage complexity, right? A big piece of software is very complex, and we can only keep a certain number of things in our brains at once. So we want to manage that complexity down. We don't want to be too clever, actually. We want to make sure that a future version of ourselves or somebody else coming on and seeing our code can easily see what's going on, and that's hard, making things that clear and simple. So abstraction is a technique for managing complexity by considering things at a higher level. For example, the lines of code that print the introduction as a whole could be called print introduction. We've kind of got it in the introduce game comment, but we actually want the comments to almost disappear into the code, self-documenting code. So we'll see how that works in a minute. So then encapsulation is a way of making sure your abstractions are adhered to. So concretely, once we've decided that this is the way we introduce the game, we can wrap that functionality off into a function and call that function that'll introduce the game for us. Then there's only one way to introduce the game. We get very consistent behavior. So just to help you get your eye in, I'm going to be using curly braces in a couple of different ways in this video. You're going to see different formats out there on the web, in sample code, in boilerplate code in Unreal, etc. So I want you to be able to tell the difference. I want you to read code like the compiler reads code, which is it doesn't care whether I put my curly brace at the end of the function definition or on a new line after it. So it'll be a little bit interchangeable in this video, and then I will be regularly going through and changing things to adhere to the function, the standard that I'm aiming for, which is where they're on a separate line. So enough talking, let's do it. We've already got the right code highlighted. If I cut that code with Control X, and then I'm going to go and paste it in this new method that we talked about. Now, don't keep things in your copy buffer for too long, so I'd probably paste it straight away and then wrap the code around it, because you could lose it, couldn't you? You can always use Control Z and stuff, you're not amateurs. Anyway, what are we going to call this method? We're introducing the game, so print intro will do fine. Okay, fantastic. Print intro. So now, curly braces. Need to put one curly brace at the bottom, and then when you do so, it's helpfully indented. But if it hasn't indented for any reason, this is how you want to end up. All right, so that's a function that takes in no parameters and passes nothing back. But even though we're passing nothing back, I still want you to be in the habit at the bottom of saying return. We're not returning anything because it's void, which means that we're returning nothing, but it's a very important habit, otherwise you can start to forget to return things. So what's the point of this print intro? It's to introduce the game. And it's got its word length with it. If you click on that, it shows you where the other instances are. By the way, let's just have a quick check, make sure we haven't used word length anywhere else, because word length is only going to be available now inside print intro. That's actually a good thing. It means the scope, the width of our code within which we can actually use it, is limited to just what we're seeing there. In fact, right inside here. So we create word length there, we use it very, very soon after, and then as soon as we leave this function, it goes what we call out of scope, and it's not available to anything else. In fact, if you come into main here and start trying to type word length, it doesn't come in the autocomplete. All right, that's called scope, and it's a good thing. It's to do with encapsulation. It's making sure we can't get hold of this where we don't need it. Now later we will need to move it to a different scope, but for now this is fine. So print intro. And in the main, what we do is we just go print intro. Great, let's make sure that works. So we've tidied up the beginning by saying print intro. Look how much tidier main is now. And it works, it prints the intro. Now, there's something else I want to tell you before we move on. The second part of this is I want to see main. In fact, what is main? Let's comment to say what main is. This is the entry point for our application or something. If you ever feel you need to describe something, do so. I want print intro to be up underneath this, so let's cut it and put it underneath. But we get a problem. Let's try compiling. Control F5. Doesn't work. Identifier not found on line 11. So line 11 tries to use print intro. It doesn't understand it. What we need to do here is take this part of void print intro, and put it at the top like that with a semicolon. Why a semicolon? Because if we try and put a pair of curly braces, which, by the way, act as another way of completing the statement. Look at main, for example. It doesn't have a semicolon on the end, and neither does print intro. Yeah, but if we try and just leave curly braces, or even curly braces and a semicolon or something, it's going to say, no, it already has a body. So the curly braces are the implementation of this, and we don't want to define the implementation in two places, really important. So we say void print intro with a semicolon on the end. And if we click on it, you can see that it also exists there and that the implementation is at the bottom. Okay, we want to keep our main function at the top because when you first come into this, you want to see, well, what's it doing? Well, this is the entry point for our application. Okay, and what else is happening? And then we print an intro. Or how does print intro work? You look down here, it does this stuff. You see how it simplifies? Okay, so let's check it runs. It does. Good, good. Okay, now, next thing, we want to put this stuff here into a method of its own. And guess what? That's going to be a challenge for you. I want you to write string getGuess as a function. Save your code so you can go back in case you mess things up. Write a function to get the guess. Return it as a string at the bottom of the function and restore your code to its former working glory. Have a go, let yourself struggle with it a bit, but not too much. If it takes you more than 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that, then watch my solution and don't feel bad. Otherwise, have a good go, have a look and see if you can do it by pattern matching and just by sheer determination and by checking on the web if you need to. Whatever you need, see if you can get it done. It's a useful problem to be able to solve, and it's using things you've already learned. Okay, welcome back. So I'm going to take all this code here, and I'm just going to put it in a method called string getGuess. And it takes in no parameters. And that's the code, all right? So it's going to get a guess from the player. In fact, I'm going to move that comment up above like that because it describes what the whole function does. And I guess for consistency, I could do the same with print intro. Okay, so print intro very simply does that. Get guess from player does that. Great. See out enter your guess. It defines it just as late as it needs to and repeats the guess back to them. Now, warning sign. This doesn't just get the guess at the moment. This more than gets the guess. It gets the guess and it prints the guess back to them. I'm going to rename that. Print the guess back. Not very good. This is what you call a side effect. If you were up here now, let's see it in action. And I just put get guess. That's my function call. So we get guess. I don't need this second load of code here. Look how simple our main method is now. We print an intro and get a guess. Let's make sure it works, and then I'll talk about this side effect. Okay, get guess not found. That's because I need to put a prototype of get guess at the top. Now this stuff at the top is starting to become the kind of contract, an overview of what we're going to be doing. And later this will be in something called a header file. But anyway, for now, we just need to make it available like that. Let's run it and see if it works. Okay, get guess must return a value. I've made the mistake I told you not to make. Return guess. So now we're returning a string. Enter your guess, define yourself a variable called guess, use this getLine method, and then let's have a space and say that we print the guess back. Okay, let's check it works, and then we will talk about side effects. Test. Your guess was test. Fantastic. Look at the win here is the simplicity of main, but reading main, it prints the intro, and then it gets the guess. Okay, and you look at that, and you look at this, and you say, well, there's a guess coming back as a string, but I don't see anything. The real problem, the side effect, is that it's printing. It shouldn't be printing when it's just called getGuess. That's a bit nasty. So we're going to own up to our mistake by renaming the method to say exactly what it does do. Now you can do that by renaming it in all three places it exists, or clicking on it and going Control-R once, and it's going to show waiting for a second chord, Control-R again. You could say getGuess and print back. In fact, that's what we'll do for now. And when you hit return, you'll say, where do you want to replace this? You can pretty much trust it if you had it selected right in the first place. And it will rename it there, and where you call it, and in the prototype at the top there. Now, this is what it does. This is a horrible method name. or method is another word for function, is another word for routine, and they all have slight subtleties as to what they actually are, but for now, let's get used to all the different ways of calling it. Get, guess, and print back does a lot. And that's a bad thing that it does so much, but at least we're honest about what it does. We have declared the side effect, and we're going to leave it like this for this video.
Sam here with a quick edit. I just want to clarify a thing that confuses a few people, that get, guess, and print back here is returning a string. However, when we're calling it, we don't actually use the result. So is that okay? Yes, it is okay to ignore the result. And it is also true that we don't necessarily have to return a result. We could have void as the return value here and not return the guess on line 38. But we are going to use that later, so we're going to leave it in for now.
So all I want to do now is do it twice. Now the structure of main is it prints the intro, get, guess, and print back, get, guess, and print back, and then it leaves a space and exits. Let's have a look at this work. Donkey, doinky, spood, that'll do. And that worked, and second guess, hello. Now we might want an extra space, but look, let's leave the formatting, it works. And the big, big win is that main is easy to understand and reads in English now. So in the next video, we'll start looking at how we can do things multiple times automatically using loops, and we'll also look at, in future videos, at how we can make this method more single-purposed. Get, guess, and print back is not a nice method because it's doing two things. Okay, fantastic. We'll see you soon.